fast forward from having rewinded, I'm just going to make the following observation. When this all started to come unwound in the late 1970s, and there are a lot of indicators that we all can look at to see what that means, flattening of middle-income earners' wage opportunities, the inaccessibility to higher education because the cost of it kept going up. All of those indicators we looked at. The first thing that happened in this country is we asked people in the middle-income bracket to work harder. If you want to reach the American dream, you just got to work that much harder. 40 hours, 45 hours, 50 hours, just keep working harder. Because obviously if you just work hard enough, it's attainable. And then the next thing that happened is we said, well, maybe we can't have single-parent homes anymore, single-family earners. People in the house need to go out and work in order to make that American dream. But that's okay, because that overlapped with the women's movement, and traditionally in the home, women stayed at home. So we felt okay putting both people out into the workforce to try to earn enough money to really achieve that middle-class dream, house ownership, education for the kids, a rung at the bottom of the economic ladder that people could climb up. And so we then had both parents at home going out and working in families that were lucky enough to have two parents. It got to a point in the 1980s where that wasn't enough. And then we all started receiving envelopes in the mail with little pieces of plastic. We said, you know what? If one person working hard isn't enough, and two people working hard isn't enough, here, you can borrow yourself into the middle-class dream. Here's a credit card, go do it. And as that got worse and worse, we said, you know what, maybe that isn't even enough. But, the middle-class folks, they're starting to build equity. Where does the middle class build equity? In homes. So we said, you know what, through the late 80s and mid-90s, we said, why don't you just borrow against all of that nest egg that you've been putting into your property and your home? And we did that for 7 to 10 years. And that unwound in 2007. So we now find ourselves with a middle income earning, lower income earning, unemployed group in this country, which I would call somewhere in the 80 to 90% of this country, that find themselves really with nowhere to turn. I had an employee of mine come into my office, and K-Bear at this point has over 1,000 employees. And he sat down and he was teary-eyed. This is just 3 days ago. And he said, I don't know where to turn. And I don't know whether I'm coming to you as a state senator or as a CEO of the company I work at. Now, this is a kid who makes about 17 bucks an hour. This is not somebody making the minimum wage. And he looks at me and he said, I went to Bridgewater State College. And before I went, when I was 18 years old, I set up an education line to borrow enough money to put myself through. And I borrowed $60,000 in the course of my time there, which now has accrued with interest to $80,000. And I'm sitting on $80,000 of debt. And I'm making 17 bucks an hour. And I'm paying between 8 and 9% interest. Okay? This is a time when the banks are paying less than 1%. I'm paying 8 to 9% interest to 4 different private lenders. Wells Fargo, Citibank, Chase, one other. And they're not giving me any breathing room. And the really sad part of this is I didn't want to tell my parents that I was borrowing the money. But I quietly went and had my grandmother sign the note. And he said, I have to be honest with you. I have thought in the past year or two, the guy's 25 years old, I have thought in the past year or two about ending my life. The 25-year-old kid. And he said, the only reason I'm not is because my grandmother co-signed this loan. And I'm not going to do this and have her lose her house, which is what she had saved. That was her middle-class dream in retirement. This has got to stop. And I want to say something. This is tough love that I'm about to give you all, because it's a town Democratic committee meeting. And Cleon, in case I forget, I want to thank you for the education you've given me over the last couple of years. But since 1968 in Massachusetts, the minimum wage has gone down 25%. Down 25%. The dollar-adjusted minimum wage in 1968 was $10.58 an hour, and now it's $8 an hour. And that's under continuous Democratic Party legislative rule, majority. Has the Democrats not been in charge during that 45 years, 45 years?
They have been.
Okay. So 45 years of continuous Democratic control, and yet we've seen the minimum wage fall by 25% in the last 45 years. In my 2.5 years in that State House, we have not had a single serious discussion about what to do with income and wealth inequality. Not a single one. And my ask to you Democrats here is that you not let that happen anymore. This needs to become a populist, activist party. Really acting on behalf of the people that we have always said we act on behalf of. We are the party that represents working class, lower income, middle income people and families. That's who we are. We should be winning elections in this day and age 80-20, not 51-49. We should be winning elections 80-20. But it's not their fault. There's only one truly populist party in the United States right now. You know who that is? Tea Party. That's the Tea Party. And until the Democratic Party reconnects with our roots and really defines what it means to be the populist party and really starts to act that way and does things like advocate for the organizing at Walmart, 30 seconds on Walmart. The biggest example of corporate welfare in the United States of America right now is the subsidy that Walmart employees are getting. Because at the wages they're getting paid, they can't afford health care and housing and food and energy and education. Because the last generation has to do with flat wages and rising costs. So what do? Not only are 4 of the wealthiest 10 people in America Walton family members, $150 billion in 4 people. But we as a government are collecting taxes to subsidize the employees who are working at Walmart. And the Democratic Party doesn't stand up and say, we need to organize. Whatever happened? What about the railway strikes? What about coal? What about steel? What about the auto industry? What about our teachers? What about our firefighters? What about our nurses? If you want to look at any industry that has achieved fairness, economic fairness, it's an industry where you will find people coming together and having this discussion, understanding commonality of interest and acting on it. And this, to me, is our party. I'm not going to look at the other folks. They're pretty articulate about who they represent.
But people are no longer voting in their own interests, which I don't understand. Tea Party members are not voting in their own interests.
Tea Party members aren't, neither are good, solid Democrats. And so it is time to be an activist party. It is time to ask our leaders to be activists. Because this doesn't reverse itself. This is not going to reverse itself. There has never been a class or a group that has the kind of wealth and power that exists in this country at the top right now, where one day it dawned on them, hey, let's just be more egalitarian with this. You know, the folks at Walmart, the Walton family is not going to say, let's just pay everybody $15 an hour. It's not going to hurt us at all, but hey, let's just do it. $150 billion. It's inconceivable. You know how much money that is? I'll ask one of the media guys. If I gave you $1 million, how long would it take me to give you $150 billion? If I gave you $1 million a year, how many years would it take? Yeah, that's why you study media, not math. Cleon, if I gave you $1 million a year,
I'd say thank you.
and not only would you say thank you once, but you would have to say thank you 150,000 times. Not 150 times, not 1,500 times, not 15,000 times. I would have to give you $1 million a year for 150,000 years to give you $150 billion. I did that math 18 times before I believed it. Why does anybody have to have the kind of wealth where if I give you $1 million, it would take me 150,000 years? That's 15 times modern history for me to get rid of that money. And that's assuming it doesn't grow at all. And hear myself on XTK tomorrow morning getting beat up. Oh, this guy thinks organized labor is good. Oh, this guy thinks that the Walmarts shouldn't have that kind of wealth. This is class warfare. It's not class warfare. This is economic justice. That's what it's called. It's not class warfare. So